We often think of genius as this spark, right? Something you're just born with. But what if one of the greatest minds in history was actually forged in the fire of a deadly fever? Well, this is the story of how a brush with death didn't just spare Nikola Tesla, it created him. Just think about it for a second. The electricity that's powering your life right now, the light over your head, the device you're watching this on. What if I told you all of it was basically a fluke, a historical accident that almost never happened? It sounds completely crazy, but it's true. The man who literally electrified our planet, Nikola Tesla, almost didn't make it. One tiny little twist of fate, and we could be living in a much, much darker world today. So to really understand the genius, we first have to go back and understand the crisis that nearly erased him from the history books altogether. Okay, so let's set the scene. The year is 1873. A devastating cholera epidemic is just tearing across Europe, and it finds its way to a brilliant but still very young teenager named Nikola Tesla. And we're not talking about a bad case of the flu here. This was a vicious strain of cholera that left Tesla completely bedridden for 9 long, agonizing months. It got so bad that the doctors just threw up their hands and told his family he was a lost cause. The future inventor of the modern age was literally fading away. Hey, just a real quick pause here. Please don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this explainer. All the information we're talking about is compiled from open sources. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so for Tesla, this fight wasn't just happening in his body. As he waged war against the disease, his mind was fighting a totally different battle, a battle for his future. And that internal struggle may have been just as draining as the cholera itself. He was completely caught between his destiny and his duty to his family. See, Tesla wasn't just fighting a disease. He was fighting for his entire life's path. His father, an Orthodox priest, was dead set that Nikola would follow in his footsteps and join the clergy. But Tesla, his heart was already obsessed with engineering and the mysteries of electricity. I mean, can you imagine that kind of pressure? So at this moment of absolute desperation, seeing his son slipping away, Tesla's father finally broke. To give his son one last reason to hold on, he made a promise that would change the world. "Get well," he said, "and you will go to the best engineering school." It was a deathbed bargain, plain and simple. And Tesla survived. But what pulled him back from the brink wasn't his father's promise, or even the medicine of the time. Nope, it was something so much more unexpected. In his own words, Tesla gave all the credit for his recovery to Mark Twain. Yeah, the author. He claimed the humor in Twain's stories was so powerful that it somehow just broke the fever's hold and gave him the will to live. Think about that. He wasn't cured by a pill, he was cured by a punchline. How wild is that? And this story gets even more incredible. Years later, the two men actually met in New York and became really close friends. When Tesla told the famous author that his books had saved his life, Twain was apparently moved to tears. He became a regular visitor to Tesla's lab and even posed for one of the first X-ray images ever taken in America, a test subject for the very man whose life his words had saved. But here's the key. Surviving the cholera didn't just make Tesla healthy again. It fundamentally rewired him. It completely transformed his approach to invention and, honestly, to life itself. Before the illness, Tesla was a dreamer, but afterwards, he was a man of action. That near-death experience gave him this profound sense of urgency. He now understood that life was fragile and time was short. This led to his famous method. Conceive an idea, build it perfectly in your mind, then immediately test it in reality. No more idle dreaming, there simply wasn't time. So that's the crucial point, this huge psychological shift. The fever forged a new work ethic in him. Every idea had to be proven, every concept had to be made real, because he knew better than anyone that he might not have it tomorrow. But as we're about to see, this brush with death left more than just a powerful drive. It left deep, permanent scars that would shape the rest of his complicated life. The experience that unlocked his practical genius also came at a tremendous personal cost, a cost that would follow him for the rest of his days. Yeah, the trauma from the cholera left some deep wounds. It manifested as severe germophobia and obsessive-compulsive behaviors. He became terrified of germs, constantly washing his hands, avoiding physical contact, using stacks and stacks of napkins. These weren't just the eccentricities of a genius. They were the echoes of a terrifying illness that he never truly escaped. And so, that's the tragic irony, isn't it? The very same fever that propelled him into a race against time to invent the modern world also created the phobias and compulsions that would increasingly isolate him from it. His greatest catalyst was also his deepest trauma. It really makes you wonder. We celebrate genius, but how often do we really consider the painful crucibles where that genius might have been forged? How often is greatness the product not just of brilliance, but of the scars left behind by survival?